So this interview was made by David from episode 9 of Komi Can't Communicate. And let's go on and take a look. You sent in, of course, you asked about the one part they did not translate. I believe the rest of this had English subtitles. But this up here did not. Himo moteyamashita kami. I'll say it again. And I'll also put some furigana here, perhaps, in underneath it, and probably just using romaji for those of you who are still working on your hiragana. So this is hima. Let me try that again. Hima, by the way, just means to be free in the sense of having time to spend. Hima o motte amashita kami. And yes, you probably know what kami is. It is the equivalent of, we'll say, Japanese gods or deities. Perhaps neither of those are sufficient translations. What does it mean to be himo motte amashita kami? Notice, of course, this is what is it. This email is in regard to this, so this is just sort of as the subject line. This is just introducing the topic of conversation, you could say, right? Hima o motte amashita kami. So the person is, well, let's start with this. So if hima is free time, motte amasu. Amasu is the present tense for amashita. So motte amasu is a set phrase. It means to kind of have too much to control or too much to, in this case, it's too much free time to spend. Too much free time is what we also say in English. So himo motte amashita is to have too much free time. And to be a deity with too much free time would be himo motte amashita kami. Okay. Now, there is a limitation to what I can explain here. I figured, okay, so this is a typical turn of phrase, and adding himo motte amashita is pretty standard as well to say I have too much free time. But himo motte amashita kami, I wasn't so sure. This seemed maybe like it should have some sort of cultural, there's some sort of cultural reference being made here, maybe something pop culture, who knows? So I took a little look around. The best, unfortunately, I could come up with, and if I were to add the extra character that would make this work, it would be kamigami. Himo motte amashita kamigami appears to be some sort of gag illustration, a meme, if you will. So for lack of better evidence of some other reference, I would say that this is probably making reference to a more or less at the time when this episode in season 1 of Komi came out. Perhaps it was a meme that was becoming popular, something to that effect. Otherwise, I would have thought, just if it was being just a standard reference to, hey, about myself as a person with too much free time, either himo motte amashiteiru, or maybe even the more common hito instead of kami for person or people. Himo motte amashita himo motte amashita hito, the person with too much free time. The rest of this you really don't need much introduction to. This is, of course, Komi Shoko, which is our main character. This is a message to her. There's one other small consideration that could be taken into account here. And maybe this is why it was kami and not hito. And that is in knowing who this message is coming from. And if I remember the scene correctly, this is coming from none other than Naka. I feel like I've forgotten some part of her name, but that is all right. The basically Chunibyo-esque, absolutely still stuck in her junior high school state while in high school, still talks like everything is in a fantasy world character. And it would appear here that she is probably referring to herself as Kami. That would totally fit her character. That would also explain why this subject was chosen, perhaps rather than being about a meme, which is always going to be somewhat transient and not always easy to reference by all different manner of people. why this probably makes a little bit more sense. A common phrase paired with a very uncommon way of referring to oneself, as Naka would likely do.